The White Sox have another chance this weekend to prove they're not going to be a team that rolls over to a division foe this season. Let's discuss the Motor City matchup with the Tigers next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Tyler Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert at SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fan Side of the Network, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already, and also follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Well, the Chicago White Sox are officially on their first road trip of the season as they're the home opening series for the Detroit Tigers. So let's discuss what to watch for this weekend. Then the Reinsdorf family and CHSN itself is stepping up the rhetoric against Comcast. Let's discuss this latest attempt to get an agreement to get the team's RSN on Xfinity. And finally, I want to go over two nuggets regarding some cast-off outfielders once highly thought of in the organization and how far they have fallen. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So, okay, let's establish again, wins and losses, they don't matter this season. We're in a full-out build. Wins and losses will not matter until probably 2027. You just want to hope that the losing is not at historic levels, so that's kind of what you're looking for. And especially wins and losses definitely don't matter right now because there's hardly any future core pieces on this roster right now. I mean, sure, enjoy the wins, savor them, love them. I know I am. But really all you can do right now, since, again, there's, I talked about on yesterday's show, there's very minimal core pieces on this roster right now. You just want to see signs of progress under manager Will Venable. And one thing you can look at least in the big picture, is can they be thorns in the sides of their division opponents, especially as we go through this build? And last year, the only reason the Sox beat the Tigers 3 times was 2 of those victories came at the end of the season when that team was likely nursing hangovers after clinching their improbable wild card spot. Remember, the Tigers won on that Friday to clinch the wild card spot when it looked like they were going to totally, not even make the playoffs. They actually traded Jack Flaherty at the deadline, and then they go on that magical, memorable August and September run, beat the White Sox that Friday to clinch the wild card spot and hand the Sox that historic 121st loss. But otherwise, if that, say the Tigers are just, maybe say they had clinched the wild card spot a few days before, or maybe they still didn't clinch the wild card. Maybe they're in the rebuild, but maybe they're in there, still their retool, and they're not playing for something. Maybe they still beat the White Sox and then sweep them. And maybe they join the Royals and Twins as the 2 teams that, as division foes that went 12-1 against the White Sox last year. Because again, the White Sox beat the Tigers. They won that series at the end of the season just because, honestly, the Tigers were probably nursing one. Because they had a huge celebration on that Friday night in Detroit. So right off the bat, the main thing I'm looking for in this series is this team going to make it hard for the Tigers to get a win? I discussed it on yesterday's show. The Sox, for 14 2/3 innings against the Twins, made it very difficult for Minnesota to get right. And even then, it wasn't a get-right series, as I explained. But they battled the Twins for 14 2/3 innings. So I would like to see, again, another battle, maybe for more than 14 2/3 innings, but over 27 innings of baseball. And by the time I post this, it could be first pitch for the first game. But either way, you just want to make sure that you're being a thorn in your division rival's side. And this isn't going to be a get-right series, though, for the Tigers, even though they're 2-4 as I'm recording this. One of the reasons is Detroit opened the season against the Los Angeles Dodgers at Chavez Ravine. They had to go to Dodger Stadium to open up the season. Good luck with that. And they battled them in games 1 and 2. Granted, they lost both games, but they took the champs to the brink. They gave them everything they could. The only game they got outmatched in was game 3 of that series. But the Motor City Bengals are coming off a series win over the Mariners. The good news, though, for the Sox is they avoid rating AL Cy Young winner Tariq Skubal in this series. So thank your lucky stars on that. He pitched yesterday. They will still have to face Jack Flaherty today, although by the time, again, I get this out, maybe first pitch is like 10 minutes away. So I'm not going to focus on this first game too much. Although you would like to see Jonathan Cannon. I think the last time he was at Comerica, he got kind of roughed up pretty good. I know it was one of his starts he got roughed up. I think he only lasted like an inning or so. So you just want to make sure he has a good start. But otherwise, can you just continue to be that pain? Because you're not going to be a get-right series for the Tigers, but you just want to avoid maybe the Tigers establishing their winning that they likely will have this season. The Sox do have to face, though, the number 4 prospect in all of baseball, according to MLB Pipeline, and that's Jackson Jobe on Sunday. The Sox did face the young right-hander last year during his brief cameo with the Tigers, but he was only, in those cameos in relief. He pitched 3 innings with no runs or hits allowed, walked 1, struck out 2 in that late September game. He did make his first career big league start on Monday against Seattle. He only lasted 4 innings. He allowed 3 runs, 3 hits, struck out 3, walked 4, and he gave up 2 dingers. So can you get to him? Can you keep this hyped prospect just hype? That would be nice to see. In terms of the Tigers' bats, Riley Green, and I still dream of the Sox taking him at number 3 in 2019 instead of Andrew Vaughn. He's off to a hot start. Somehow you're going to have to try to neutralize him. Some way, somehow. Spencer Torkelson, whose career was left for dead in the offseason. He's off to a great start too. So let's render him useless Sox arms. And again, just the biggest thing to watch for in terms of the White Sox is can Cannon, Davis Martin, and Martin Perez keep the good starting pitching going after it had a brief figurative speed bump that it hit in Sean Burke's Wednesday outing. So, can they get back to showing that the starting pitching is going to be the calling card of this team this season? And then if the Sox do get a small lead, or they're facing a small deficit, or they have it tied, can the Sox bullpen maintain it? Because through the first 6 games, we have seen the bullpen can only maintain giant leads. They're good at that. 3-0 lead, though, keeping the game tied, down 2 runs, failed to meet the moment. So then that goes back to the Sox offense, though. Can they produce runs, especially when through the first 6 games, they've been using the long ball to score? And why bring that up? While Comerica is getting a little bit better as a home run park, it's still a pitcher's park. It's still expansive. So you can't be relying too much on the long ball at Comerica. So can you produce some offense there? And it would help if Luis Robert Jr. finally showed up this season. Through the first 6 games, he has a 455 OPS. And we know he doesn't like the cold, and it's going to be in the low 50s this weekend, high 40s on Sunday. But he's got to produce better than a 455 OPS, especially when it looks like the same pitching attack keeps happening that he's been facing pretty much his entire career, especially in 2024. Bust him down and in, and then get him to chase down and away. So start laying off that stuff, man. Draw the walk, because it's, I still wouldn't give him a pitch, because as you saw in spring training, if you give him something to hit, he will crush it. So give him minimal pitches to look at, but just know, dude, you're going to be getting a lot of junk. Try to draw some walks until Andrew Benintendi shows that. And, he's another thing to look at. Can Andrew Benintendi continue to hit? If Andrew Benintendi's hot start continues, then you might start to see Luis Robert Jr. get pitched, maybe get a few more pitches. But otherwise, I'd be only giving Luis Robert Jr. a few pitches, and even then, punish him. Punish the few pitches you're going to get, or the mistakes. But have a plan. Know that this is how you're being pitched to. And it's the same thing, and he keeps chasing. Although you see him lay off a little bit of the away, but everybody is still trying to get him to chase. So stop chasing. And it would be nice, again, if he can not only make it through this cold April healthy, but show some signs of adjustments. Because, again, one of the other knocks that I could see opposing other teams trying to trade for him say, well, I don't want to give you that. I don't want to give you my 2 top 5 prospects because he's going to strike out a lot. Just draw some walks, Luis Robert Jr., please. And again, Andrew Benintendi, need him to swing that hot bat. Well, some of you won't be even able to see this weekend series, as the largest cable provider in Chicago, Comcast's Xfinity, still isn't carrying CHSN. Michael Reinsdorf may be involved more with the Bulls, but he will likely be the one deciding who the Sox get sold to once his father passes away. And the owner's son is not happy with Comcast still not coming to an agreement to carry CHSN. And I want to discuss that next on Locked On White Sox. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, the complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. When it comes to fueling your body, quality matters. That's why Just Ingredients is changing the game with clean, high-quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. Just Ingredients offers an NSF-certified line of protein powder, electrolytes, pre-workout, and creatine, all rigorously tested to ensure they're free from substances banned by major athletic organizations. Just Ingredients has partnered with two-time MVP Bryce Harper, who trusts their NSF-certified sports line to fuel his training and recovery. And I love that Just Ingredients prioritizes wholesome, nourishing ingredients without the artificial junk. Whether you're recovering after a workout or need an energy boost, their grass-fed whey protein and pre-workout deliver real results. I like putting the whey protein in my morning smoothies, especially how it's got the chocolate taste. Really good stuff to put in there. Visit justingredients.us and use code LOCKEDONMLB for 20% off. And for more wellness tips, follow at just.ingredients on Instagram. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms. So make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. All right, so the rhetoric is being amped up by the White Sox, Bulls, and Blackhawks when it comes to the teams-owned regional sports network, the Chicago Sports Network, better known as CHSN, not being on Comcast's Xfinity despite launching last October. You got the CHSN X account tweeting out Derek Rose saying Comcast and CHSN should, they should make good. He took a picture on his Instagram. They put like the eyeball on there. I can't share the tweet because, again, pictures, stuff like that. When it comes to copywriting, I don't know if that was a copyrighted picture that Derek Rose shared. Either way, though, they kind of just had that eyeball stuff then. Then you got Michael Reinsdorf, Bulls team president, and likely the guy who will be dictating who the next White Sox owner will be, as his dad, Jerry Reinsdorf, has reportedly said the family should keep the Bulls, sell the White Sox, even though it looks like Michael has lined up the next buyer and Justin Ishbia. I've talked about that on previous episodes, but either way, he was out there throwing some major accusations toward Comcast as they still will not come to an agreement to carry CHSN on Xfinity. Now, the narrative is CHSN is pushing that they're willing to go on the higher tier packages that Comcast is pretty much wanting all RSNs to be on, and Comcast still isn't budgeting. The Sun-Times' Jeff Agrest may have some reasoning behind that. First, let's get into what Michael Reinsdorf recently said at Crane Chicago's business real estate event that happened on Thursday, and this is what Jeff Agrest shared. Reinsdorf said CHSN thought it had a deal with the cable provider in December, but it fell apart. He said the issue with Comcast is at the corporate level. Quote, "To me, it's bad faith," he said, according to Cranes. "It's discriminatory. It doesn't make any sense to me," end quote. Reinsdorf said the teams had a good relationship with Comcast while appearing on NBC Sports Chicago, a former Comcast affiliate that folded in September. He also said he was frustrated that Cubs Marquee Sports Network, which remains on the air, appeared to be further along in talks for a new deal. Quote, "It's disappointing you can't go to bars and restaurants to get games," Reinsdorf said. "They're costing people money, they're costing people enjoyment, and to me, that's not right," end quote. All right, so I can actually see Michael's point in that Comcast continues to carry Marquee under short-term deals and still on the regular package, and yet they can't even get, CHSN on a premium package, despite NBC basically kind of sort of causing the entire creation of CHSN to begin with, because Comcast is getting out of the RSN game. That is what 670 The Scores Lawrence Holmes has been saying a lot when he talks about this topic on Spiegel and Holmes. And he was employed by NBC Sports Chicago. So he kind of has the inside information there. Basically, NBC doesn't want RSNs anymore, or doesn't want to be involved with RSNs anymore because they don't think they're profitable. And Comcast owns NBC. So they're just trying to get out of the game completely. I think there's like only NBC Bay Area left and maybe NBC Philadelphia. I mean, remember, NBC originally had NBC Sports that was originally Versus, and then they completely got out of that game. So they got out of the national sports network game, and now they're getting out of the RSN game. And so they basically them saying, kind of hinting like, hey, we don't want to do this anymore. Is one of the reasons why the Bulls, the Blackhawks, and the White Sox created CHSN. And Agrest may have found out why they're still not on the largest cable provider in Chicago. 50% of the television audiences, 50% of Chicago's TV users still subscribe to cable. And this is what Agrest found out. CHSN knew launching October 1st, its path to wide distribution would be bumpy, particularly with Comcast, which has been moving RSNs across the country to its highest programming tier, but has made deals with Astound, RCN cable, and DirecTV satellites. So it's not as if coming to terms with Comcast should be difficult. From the beginning, CHSN's availability over the air hasn't sat well with Comcast, and that makes sense. No other RSN in the country is available for free 24/7. But OTA viewing isn't the way most fans want to watch. There's no pause or rewind functions, and it isn't reliable. I can't tell you how many times my signal has been weakened by the weather. OTA distribution is part of CHSN's business plan, which aims to increase the network's footprint within its team's territory to sell advertising. It was never meant to replace distribution it couldn't achieve locally. It could be considered an act of goodwill until the network meets its goals. Not everyone has taken it that way, though, including Comcast. And Agrest, and again, this is at chicago.sun.times. Check it out. Donate to support local journalism. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Kyle Williams now being on the beat for the Sox. I mean, I hope it's official. I don't think they've ever officially announced it, but he's a great writer, so make sure to support him. Agrest did get a comment from Comcast. Quote, "We remain open to discussions with CHSN to work toward a fair agreement that reflects the value of its programming and the evolving RSN marketplace," end quote, a Comcast spokesperson told the Sun-Times. All right, so here's a few things. First question, though, I do have for the Wirtz or Reinsdorf family. Did anyone mention to Comcast as NBC Sports Chicago was in the winding down? Did anybody mention as, somebody was turning out the lights, hey, we're not only going to create this new RSN, but we have a goal to just make sure our fans can get the product however they want to consume it? Somebody mentioned, try to have mentioned that to Comcast. Like, hey, you're getting out. Okay. We have to now go a different direction. This is the direction we still want to go, even though it's outdated. And even though the money train is completely derailed, this is what we're going to do. But what we want to do is we want to be able to provide the channel however our fans are consuming television these days. And I do think that is actually mostly the legit goal of why they went over the air. I do. I actually 75% take CHSN at their word. Do I believe, though, the over-air was a leverage play too? Yes. But again, it makes sense if you want to solve the RSN problem, you switch back to ad revenue. Go back to the ad revenue model with getting some carrier fee revenues too. It just means the pie is going to be shrunk. So good luck telling that to the players in the next collective bargaining session. Because on that end, again, it's as clear as day. It's been well reported that the RSN model is completely dying because, again, people are cutting the cords because they don't want to pay the prices. One of the reasons why the prices for cable is up is because, they did find out, hey, we're putting like these RSNs that are charging us maybe $5, $6 a person. Again, I'm just hypothetically speaking. And yet maybe, you look at the ratings, maybe only a percentage is actually consuming that content. That should go on a higher tier package. Okay. That's where we're at. But then on the flip side, so that's why it's going to shrink the pie. But on the flip side, you got to try to find ways to still draw revenue, even though it might not be record profits. So, I get it. It makes sense in a diversified TV consumption audience that we have right now. The solution is just give the fans the TV product however they're darn consuming it. So if that means you're a YouTube TV person, YouTube has made it clear they're not interested in carrying RSNs at all. So you cannot blame CHSN for that. That is a well-reported YouTube stance that YouTube has they just don't want RSNs. So if you're in Generation Z, though, you like the YouTube price, you're not going to be able to get CHSN no matter what. So, hey, CHSN decided, okay, here's either a direct to stream option that you can pay $19.99 a month, or again, if you live in the Chicagoland area, you can just get an antenna. We got you. And yes, even though for Generation Z, you might be like, why would I use something that my grandparents hated? I'm fully on board with you. My dad got rid of cable. Got rid of the antenna in part because, back in I think it was 1988, he got cable. In part because, yes, the White Sox went to cable. He wanted White Sox games, and he also got tired of the bad pictures. So fully understand that. Now, obviously, it would be much, much easier if baseball just did, what the NFL does and just basically share all the TV revenue and sell all the regional broadcasts to one or two interested partners. And I would say, though, with the option of, because the Dodgers and the Yankees have just major, television contracts, especially the Dodgers, with opt-outs for those teams. Like, if you want to go on your own, fine. We'll have a different revenue sharing or a revenue paying. We'll figure that out, but an opt-out. But otherwise, yeah, why not we have ESPN, the games on ESPN Plus, or again, ESPN, they create their own RSNs for local coverage. Or again, you just have regional coverage like you have technically with the NFL. Because again, the NFL, most of the games that you see on Sundays are regional selected games. That's just all it is. But that'd be too easy because, again, owners have always wanted their cake and eat it too. And then the small market owners, they just complain about the size of their cake still. But at the end of the day, this goes back to owners still not accepting the RSN model is gone. It's dead. The grift is over. It will never return to the days of yore. And as I keep floating, okay, if you want to give it to fans and how they're consuming it, fine. But if you still want at least a Trojan horse, for example, to still get some carrier fees, that type of stuff. If I'm the NBA, MLB, and NHL, if I'm like, again, the Blackhawks, what the Blackhawks and the Bulls and the Sox should have done, what the Wirtz and Reinsdorf family should have done to me, this is just a hypothesis. Again, if you don't want to share all your local TV money, fine. But I'd still band together all the, whatever local teams. I'd still band together and buy up one local station in every market like WCIU or Channel 50. And I wouldn't make it a true RSN. I would make it a zombie station that you're pretty much seeing, the reruns that just so happens to carry my games, and Comcast still carries local stations. The FCC usually wants local stations carried. So even to make sure I could maybe go to the FCC, and that's what the Yankees kind of did to get the Yes Network still on the cable provider, from what I read, I would have maybe a local general news show in the morning. Local or that, and then maybe some evening sports programming, kind of like what CHSN is doing to justify my local importance. But otherwise, I'd syndicate reruns, collect that ad revenue from just being a zombie station, because that's kind of what a lot of these, MTV is doing these days. And then you have a better chance, at least, for forcing cable carriers to carry you on their regular tiers. But either way, it feels like a poorly communicated rollout on CHSN side. And just sour feelings on Comcast side. And you know who gets screwed? The fan, like always. Well, I want to go over two recent nuggets regarding two outfielders this team used to hold in high regard and how far they have fallen down in the organization. And that's next on Locked On White Sox. There's nothing better than catching an MLB game live, the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, and the smell of the ballpark food. And if you're looking to go last minute, Game Time makes getting tickets even easier than ever. With last minute deals, all in pricing, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as the game time gets closer, meaning you can score an incredible deal. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On White Sox or of Locked On. And as with Garrett Crochet possibly making his return to Rate Field on next Saturday, I can count on them to help grab tickets that meet my needs. The Game Time Picks features makes finding the best deals effortless. It filters out the fluff and highlights the top discounts in the stadium. And I love that I can preview my exact seat before purchasing. No bad surprises when I get to the stadium. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. And again, when it comes to fueling your body, quality matters. That's why Just Ingredients is changing the game with clean, high-quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. Just Ingredients offers an NSF-certified line of protein powder electrolytes, pre-workout, and creatine, all rigorously tested to ensure they're free from substances banned by major athletic organizations. Just Ingredients has partnered with two-time MVP Bryce Harper, who trusts their NSF-certified sports line to fuel his training and recovery. I love that Just Ingredients prioritizes wholesome, nourishing ingredients without the artificial junk. And whether you're recovering after workout or need an energy boost, their grass-fed whey protein and pre-workout deliver real results. Just visit justingredients.us and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. And for more wellness tips, follow just.ingredients or follow at just.ingredients on Instagram. Sorry there. Got a tickle in my throat. Hey, welcome back to Lock. 1 second. All right. Get that little tickle in your throat there. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. One moment, gotta hit the cough button. Sorry about that. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball friends to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, wherever they get their podcasts, as this show is available on all major podcast platforms. Hope you have a good weekend. Right now, I got some pretty much no plans. Gonna play it by ear. My wife and daughter are going to a play tonight, so I kind of got to figure out what I'm going to do tonight. Probably just going to stay in, watch some sports, that type of stuff. Well, Oscar Colas and Dominic Fletcher both got DFA'd by opening day, and the Sox just won't truly let them go either. Both were outright to the minors after clearing waivers, and man, Colas has fallen so far down the organization that he was demoted from AAA Charlotte to AA Birmingham as the organization decided to promote pitching prospect Eric Adler. And I do think they signed another minor leaguer position player. I forgot his name, but they signed him to a minor league deal. So they had to create room on the roster in Charlotte. And also Tyler Gilbert is making a rehab assignment. So they went from envisioning Oscar Colas as the long-term right fielder, the Cuban Ohtani, to getting him demoted all the way down to a level because the Sox want to see what a pitcher can do. That's how far Oscar Colas' career has fallen. I mean, I guess the Barons need a true outfielder, as their roster only lists two other true outfielders, although I believe Wilfred Veras and DJ Gladney can play the outfield too, although they list him at third base. So I get why they needed to send someone to AA, because I guess they only had two other outfielders on the roster. But man, he has fallen so far down that they won't even let him go, though. That's the other thing. I just don't get it. Also, USA Today's Bob Nightingale had a nugget on Sunday that showed just how badly the Sox botched the deal to get Dominic Fletcher. He shared that the White Sox chose Fletcher over Jake McCarthy in the deal that sent one of the team's top 10 prospects last offseason. Fletcher had a 206, 252, 256 slash line last season in 72 games. You know, McCarthy had a 285, 349, 400 slash line in 142 games. So now that he played way more and he was a starter, and the Sox could have had him. But no, they went with Dominic Fletcher. Now, McCarthy is off to an early slump, but still, this deal officially one of the biggest losses for a minor deal that the White Sox could ever have. You know, and if Christian Manaea doesn't even pitch another inning in the big leagues, the process was still bad. You know, they traded a 21-year-old pitcher, and especially given the conditions of the team's young arms getting ravaged by Tommy John surgery, and Mason Adams officially did have the procedure. So now you have 6 young arms lost for the year with Tommy John, and the team's pitching director acknowledging, you know, young arms are going to get hurt, but we still have to ask them to perform at a high level. And one of the reasons why you get elbow injuries is you're asking them to always throw their best pitches as hard as they can. So maybe you should have kept a talented young arm like Manaea. But either way, still dealt him for an older prospect, still bad process. And now that you could have had a better player, and you didn't. So I get why they've kept him for depth, but I don't get why they're keeping Colas around, as you could literally find another young failed prospect option to plug in at Birmingham. I mean, he's 26. His potential days are over. And now that the rest of the league basically told you that, because no one picked him up. No one traded for him either. So it just shows you what the rest of the league thinks of him. And now it just shows you again what the organization thinks of him. They're keeping around because I guess, hey, if you still want to keep playing baseball, I mean, okay. I mean, that's what it feels like. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. I'll be back on Monday to go over the good and the bad in the weekend series against the Tigers. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion regarding the Sox weekend series with the Tigers, the latest rhetoric between CHSN and Comcast getting amped up, and the 2 news nuggets regarding Dominic, Fletcher, and Oscar Colas. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at ToddJDub, or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at LockedOnWhiteSox@gmail.com. Have a great day, have a great weekend, and I'll see you Monday.